This is Python's Paradise. This is your host, Greg Gilbert, aka the Python Hyena, straight out of Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, but rocking a beautiful winter Toronto background behind me because I consider Toronto my true home and I love that city. But you know what, folks? Here we are on January the 17th, 2025. And no, to give a little backstory to this, I've had author Charles Rosenay on here three times. And I approached him last year to see if he wanted to come on a fourth, but he was really busy. Maybe he was haunted by the fact that we shared a room during Chiller. Well, anyway, so he sent somebody else in here for me to give a hard time to, but jeepers, we're just gonna make fun of Charles. I mean, let's face it. Folks, I have somebody that well, I'll let him explain his backstory because he'd be better off to do it. I'm not sure how I can put it into words because I don't get guests like this all the time. But you know what? That's okay. Unique is good. Interesting is good. The intrigue is good. Folks, I give you Patrick Thomas Gormley. How do you do, Patrick?
Well, I'm doing pretty good. And Thomas Patrick Gormley, I am known the last 40 years as the Archangel of the Paranormal. And that's a moniker that was given to me. I've been looking into the paranormal since I was a teen. I'm an old fart now. And along with that, I'm retired law enforcement. I was a criminal behaviorist. In my retirement, I actually profile historic serial killers. And
Hmm.
so I do a podcast with that also. I am also partners with Charles Rosenet as the shaman and the shaman in the Showman LLC. We promote a lot of events, psychic fairs, things like that. I'm known as the better half of us because I'm much, much better looking than Charles, of course.
I'll give you a little my background on Charles. I didn't know who he was, but I'm one of these podcasters that will interview anybody, I mean, I've been doing this since 2015, so I'm on my 10th year here, and I kind of fell into this by accident, so I'm amazed I've been able to do this. And Charles approached me, sent me a private message, explained who he was, and mentioned his book of top 10 horror list, and he had asked if he could come on my show. Because I guess he was turned down by another podcast or two because they didn't know who he was. And I'm kind of like, well, people don't really know who I am either. So who am I to judge people, And I kind of know that feeling. So I usually, unless I have a reason not to, I almost 99% of the time, as I'll say, yes, come on the show. He's been on three times. And it's interesting because I started doing the conventions in 2017 when a Canadian actress invited me to assist her at Horrorama in Toronto, and it was the first time I had ever traveled. And the actress was Lisa Langlois, class of 1984, and she helped me get my passport. So I just went to the States for the first time last year in April because Lisa was doing Chiller. And I said yes. And I remember Charles getting hold of me and said, because I mentioned to him, I said, Charles, you're going to be doing this. I'm going to be there. We'll get to meet each other. And I've gotten people for his top 10 horror list booked as well, like Eileen Dietz, for example.
Mm.
And Charles reaches out to me and says, Greg, would you like to split a room at the hotel where this is taking place, where Chiller's taking place? I was like, you know what? That sounds like a great idea. It gets it half the cost for both of us.
Mhm.
So I met Charles there. I helped Lisa get set up, and he was helping Tara Buckman get set up. And I've had Tara Buckman on through him, and I was talking to Tara recently, actually, and she was a delight. She was so happy to meet me in person. But I remember I, Charles was great with me. But anytime anybody asks me, and this goes with him too, we exaggerate um, sharing a room because I've told people there, I said, yeah, well, Charles was asleep, I would yell pillow fight. Whereas that never happened, but I thought it was really cool and we got a room there, double beds and and this is the first time we've met in person, and Charles was absolutely great. And so that was how I got connected with Charles. Um, how did you get affiliated with him?
Oh, you're gonna love this one.
Oh, it's better than mine.
Yeah. So, you know, when you're in the paranormal and you get to know certain people, and I heard the moniker the shaman and the showman. I wasn't originally the shaman. He was with somebody else at the time. And I went to one of the events at a brewery called Two Roads, which is a distributor and all that. They do pretty well for a Connecticut brewery nationwide. And so when we do the psychic fairs, we have them at breweries. So you have built in, some people have a few and then go find out what their future is or any assistance they need or talk to dead loved ones and all that. So it's fun. And I met Charles there, was kind of hanging out. I knew his ex-partner briefly. And so we're hanging out and trying to get to know each other. And then Charles looks at me, you know how Charles is, and I looked at him and he says to me, I don't like you. And I said, well, I don't like you either. And we laughed. Believe it or not, 2 days later, his partner leaves him and he needs somebody to help him out because it's in the middle of busy season for, horror or paranormal. So I says, yeah, yeah, I'll help you out and all that. And we've been together ever since and just making fun of each other all the time. The little things that you know about Charles yourself, that's why he's the showman of the shaman and the showman.
So is
You
he the
know,
para
yeah,
abnormal?
yes, pretty much. He's the abnormal part of paranormal. So definitely got it right there.
Oh yeah, I know on what is that chiller? I did a video where I talked to him. He had all of his books out and stuff, and so very fascinating. And Charles was great with me. Still in touch with him, and uh, as I said, I have connected with people for his top 10. Here's an interesting story: is that I was pitching in people to reach out to for his second top 10 book. And
Yeah.
one was Eileen Dietz from The Exorcist, who I've had on here two or three times. And I got to meet Eileen at Frightmare in the Falls a couple years ago. And anyway, I get this message from Charles, and he says, you and I have a mutual friend in common. And I responded, who? And he says, well, I'm here at, I don't know. I don't know whether it was Chiller or where he was, but he approached Eileen Dietz about his book.
Yeah.
And I remember I had mentioned it to Eileen because I wanted to make sure I was pitching people to him that were interested to be approached on it. And I get Charles said that my name kind of went around that convention a little bit. So I was like, that's interesting. So
You were there, but not.
yeah. So that was it. I don't know how many people I connected him with. I know Eileen was one. And anyway, so I finally met him at Chiller and uh and he talked told me about his wife making sure he make sure he packs a lunch.
Yep. Yeah,
I had a
Charles,
good huh?
there's a lot that Charles doesn't eat. So let's just put it that way. So any event we do, he usually has a a brown bag lunch of some sort. And yeah, I
Yeah.
guess it keeps
So
him younger. I guess it keeps him in his vampire ways, so
yeah. But anyway, one thing I was listening to some audio of you. I don't know what podcast it was, but this was fascinating that you had knew Ed and Lorraine
Mhm.
Warren. And it's funny because I didn't know anything about them until I saw The Conjuring, and the Annabelle movies. Of course, Annabelle to me is now not so much demonic as opposed to the doll that um, uh, Marlon Wayans is raping in a haunted house too.
Oh, Jesus. Oh my God.
Now she's haunted.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think Ed and Lorraine can help that doll after that.
Uh,
I just thought it was funny. This movie comes out and Marlon Wayans, the first thing he thinks is, I bet you I could have sex before.
yeah.
Anyway, I thought I don't know how many Conjuring movies there are, but I remember those first two were pretty good, especially that first one. I saw them in theaters, but I remember Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga in those movies, and so I didn't know they were real people until I was like reading up on it.
Yeah.
So I must ask how you come to meet them and or what your path was with them.
So, growing up, I didn't know I was an empath or had abilities. So just by a chance meeting, the Warrens would give speeches at all the colleges all across like New England and talk about the dangers of using talking boards or just the devil's real and those types of things that you saw in a lot of the Conjuring movies. And so they would go and give these speeches. And one of my friends was able to drive at the time because I was only 13, 14 years old. So they said, let's go to this, it's Halloween, we're in Halloween, let's go check it out. So it was at a local college nearby, a couple towns over. So we went and we're watching, and then at the end, you get to go meet them. And in the back, there's like 50 people kind of milling around. And here comes Lorraine, she looks like everybody's grandmother. And it felt like the seas parted. And she came right to me and she says, honey, she called everybody honey. She says, honey, you've been having problems for a long time. And I'm like, holy shit, she knows, how I've been feeling. So she described what it was. Um, then I got to, meet Ed and all that. And, I kept up with them because on Halloween, they would do these special engagements over the house or at one of the local restaurants where they lived in Monroe, and they would show you the really good footage that they don't show at the colleges. So actual, footage, exorcisms and things like that, just to really scare the what out of you. And I learned back then not to mess with, you know, things that might be evil. And you learn. I learned a lot from them. Then I went off to college and kind of lost track of them. But there's still people in the past that I met back then that I'm getting to see again now that we're older. Like somebody like their nephew John Zaffis, who I remember when he had dark hair, now he has white hair. But that's how it goes. And one of my really good friends, Joe Frankie, who's worked with the Warrens side by side. He met him around the same time I did. He just kept, working with them side by side for years. He's part of the Warren, society and all that. And Joe and I actually still do consult on cases across the country. That people call us and we try and consult and then determine if somebody needs to investigate that we could send out. So we've done that type of stuff. I'm like all over the place. I mean, I do so many different things. I do a true crime podcast with some friends. I have a group I'm working with now that we're just trying to put a whole group together nationwide to help people, heal from trauma and some of the trauma that creates paranormal things like that. And then of course working with Charles, doing all the events like the this year the Connecticut Paracon. We've done that for the last few years. It's become really popular. But just to give it a little more boost, we added to it true crime. So paranormal and true crime, a lot of people are like, oh, that's great. But they don't realize they both go together like peanut butter and jelly. You're talking about, Amityville. The Warrens were part of that case too. But, you're looking at the DeFeo murders where he murdered his whole family, and then, you get people that move in and move out in 28 days, and you create the Amityville horror. So you have a true crime that becomes paranormal, like Basilica Axe Murder House, Lizzie Borden, Madame LaLaurie's home in New Orleans, and those types of things. It seems like anytime there's a murder trauma, it seems to bring a paranormal incident after that. So that's kind of how they go together, and that's what we want to do in Connecticut this year. We have the Salem Paracon Horror Festival. So that's, you said Tara Buckman earlier. We had her a couple years ago, just the nicest lady. And we also, last year, our first year, because they were exonerated, a lot of people don't know, is the witch trials everybody thinks is Salem. But 45 years before that, Connecticut had witch trials. And the first woman, put to death for witchcraft in the New World was a woman named Alice White. She was out of Windsor, Connecticut. And there was 11 people hung. A couple of them were put to the water torture test and all that to see if there were witches or not. So that went on in Connecticut. A lot of people don't know that. They've kept it quiet. But it was just, what, 2 years ago now that they were exonerated. You're talking 300 and some odd years of the
You could
state.
use the Monty Python, the Holy Grail method to find
Yeah,
out if they're a witch.
that's true. That's true too. So I think
Not that I'm trying to make light of it, but you made me think about it.
oh yeah, my good friend of mine and all that, we always like Monty Python, and we're quoting stuff from it, and yeah,
Hmm.
so I'm right there with you. I know exactly what you're talking
Well, you
about.
mentioned you like to stay away from evil, and you got a true crime thing going
Yeah,
here, and I'm like, well, you know what? I guess if you like to stay away from evil, I guess you're staying away from government.
yeah. Oh Jesus. Yeah. I always tell people, when you're voting, I was like, oh, I like this guy. I'm like, what are you talking about? I says they're all criminals. So you're just voting for the
Well,
criminal you think the best.
we have a prime minister that just stepped down, and although
Yeah.
I'll never believe it until I see it, and well, there's somebody that should be investigated.
Yeah.
Feel free.
Yeah, but that it's a given. You can't get to, I firmly believe you can't get to a position of power without stepping on toes illegally. Nobody legally lets that type of power go to where it is. So yeah, I just believe that. But
Well, I
I don't know.
wanted to
It's just weird
know.
how
Yeah,
our world works and what we accept and don't accept. So yeah.
yeah. I wanted to know, like, uh, growing up, you've had this since you were young. Um, do you remember? Now, this I don't know. Maybe you do, and maybe you don't. But this is just my curiosity. The moment that you realized that there's something about you that you thought was different. Any circumstance, a moment, how old you were, uh, and what it was all about.
Well, yeah, really young, just before my teens.
Okay.
It's hard for me to remember because I went through a lot of stuff growing up, which people refer to as trauma. But I, anytime I walk into a room, I could tell that, oh, those two people were arguing before. I could feel the energy, or all of a sudden I'm really happy and I walk into a room, I feel real sad, and I was like, Jesus, something's got to be wrong with me. I thought, oh God, maybe I have one of these weird psychological problems or something. And you worry about it. You don't know what it is and all that. And I'm just glad that I met somebody that realized what it was. So, because a lot of people don't. They might grow up thinking that there's a problem with them and they're going to start taking all this medication and it's going to make it worse. And they have a lifetime of these types of problems. When people have gifts, I think back in the day, a lot of them would be institutionalized for their gifts. So now that we're more open to it and knowing, there's less likely that people are going to think they're crazy and start just giving them drugs and say, oh, this will cure you. No, it's getting in tap with it. And I'm just glad that I realized it at a young age before potentially things got out of control. So, and I think I'm lucky that I met Lorraine Warren when I did. So let's put it that way.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Where was I going to go with that? I had a question right in my head. Um, Okay, yeah, I know from listening to that podcast. You were saying whenever you are asked to, I guess you don't do the house call thing anymore. Which I remember you had mentioned in that a lot of times it's just people on the medication and this and that. It's interesting you say that because I know somebody who's dealing with partial dementia
Mhm.
and her son is like just like, oh my goodness, you'd never believe the stuff that his mom is claiming that's going on that really isn't going on,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And I'm going to guess you probably ran into that a lot.
Yeah, you really have to discern it at the frame of mind because I've talked about before when people come into their abilities and all that. And sometimes it's trauma that brings it out. When we're born,
Hmm.
between the age of 1 and 7, you're in what's called theta. That's when the kids have their imaginary friends because they're more open. And that's that feeling. Theta is that feeling when you're about to fall asleep and you're about to wake up. That nice, comforting, open feeling. That's how people like myself are able to pick up on things. We're able to put ourselves into that theta wave. Um, and some people have it after a near death experience or anything like that. But if you don't have any of that in between, you get it when you're just born. And then when critical thinking kicks in, of course, you're going to be like, parents tell you, oh, it's nothing. And then you just close off. Um, the next time it opens is when you're near death. People in hospice, they go into that state. That's why they see loved ones coming to help them, go home or wherever the next plane is. So that happens too. A lot of hospice nurses say they're all seeing loved ones coming to them, you know, in the state of, Alzheimer's or anything like that, where the brain's deteriorating. It's hard to tell, is it the medication or is it the part of the brain that's deteriorating that puts us into that? So there could be that moment there actually their brain part that deteriorates opens up so they're able to see things. Yeah, it sounds crazy, but it's hard to discern whether it's one thing or another. Um, so I always tell people when somebody goes into that state, don't tell them they're not seeing it. Just go with them and keep them safe. It's the best thing to do with somebody that has dementia. Uh, you don't want to create anger because, a lot of times that part of the brain, a lot of people with dementia get angry easily. But if they're thinking they're seeing something, go with it and keep them safe. Just sit there and listen. And that's the best way to approach somebody with dementia that's going through a possible, what they perceive as a paranormal issue. So.
Well, I'd like you to tell me about because I don't know anybody personally that that does this. So this is all new to me. I mean, I've heard of this before, but you're a unique guest for me. So, and I've had people that's been on here that's, possessed dolls or and whatnot, and that's all very fascinating. So, and I'll hear their stories, and so with you, what is the highlight case you've ever done?
Oh Lord.
Oh, you've got many.
Well, since I
Besides
started doing,
besides Charles Rosenay.
yeah, he's the hardest case. So
You haven't solved that one, huh?
still haven't solved that one. Yeah. So, so I, I've had thousands of cases. I've consulted on them, all this other type of thing, but I think probably the most fascinating one with so many different things going on. Um, I had a case in Connecticut. I can't really say where it is,
That's okay.
because you got to you don't want people hanging out at their front door because it's pretty crazy. So the people that lived there were three guys. They looked like motorcycle, like gang members or anything like that. You didn't think they'd be afraid of anything. So during the interview, I'm interviewing and finding out, they had poltergeist activity going on in the house, a lot of knocking. Down in the basement, the basement door would open and close on its own, like so hard that it would slam and they can't sleep. So they would put the couch against the basement door so they could try and get some sleep. They've had things pushed down them in the middle of the night. Shadow figure walking in the back room, which I found out used to be a kitchen, and now it's a back room. So before I go in and do anything, I always get a big history on that location. So the partner I was working with at the time, she had found a ton of stuff. I mean, to the point where we were down to the nitty gritty. So this house was owned by a gentleman. He had six children, and his wife. And next door, he had owned another home where he put borders in, and it used to be a tobacco field. It's now an airport area now, but so he decided, he had to go on business to New York and comes back, finds out his wife cheated on him with one of the boarders. So he came enraged and bludgeoned her to death in front of his six children in this kitchen area of the house, which of course is now a back room where they've been seeing the shadow figure. So that puts the case together where we have to move through being sensitive. And the woman I was working with at the time was a psychic medium. We were picking up on about eight spirits in this house. So I had a camera. It's called an SLS camera. So for your viewers, what it is, the old Xbox Connect system. So the old video game where if you move, it puts pixelations on you. It picks up your energy and your movement. And as you move, you see the green stick figure move too. So they're finding out we use this for paranormal now because some people that had the system, they're playing the game and then all of a sudden player two will pop up. There is no player two. So we're thinking, well, maybe it's picking up spirit energy. So they made this SLS camera where we could point, and if something's not there, it picks up and it's moving around, and we try and communicate with it. Say, hey, can you raise your left hand? And it does. That might mean we have an audience with an energy. So that's what that means. So we have this camera going and pointing it into that kitchen area, and up pops. I could feel the hairs go up, so I knew something strange was going on. Because as you pick up that energy, I picked up that negative static energy, and the two figures pop up, and then one looks like it's bludgeoning the other one, like it's reenacting the murder. And I'm trying to communicate with it to see if it's just a residual, which means it's like a movie plays over and over again in some hauntings. I wanted to see if I could communicate, but as I'm seeing that, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to communicate. So I just said, let me just start talking. So as I'm talking and trying to get it to stop, loud bangs on the wall, like it's angry that I'm trying to get it to stop. And the bangs are about as loud as 22 gunshots. So it's not just a house settling. I mean, these were like huge, loud bangs. And finally, one of the figures leaves, and the other one there looks like it's injured. So I said to it, I says, if you're the woman, uh, and you don't want to be here anymore and have this keep happening over and over again, I'm going to reach my hand out. You have free will. Just touch it. You could leave. Giving her the idea. You see the green stick figure reach for my hand, touch it, and disappear. And then the whole energy of the house just like changed. So we decided we were going to bless this house and try and rid it of the negative energy that's going on, anything there that shouldn't be there. Um, so we felt like we did that, and I still didn't feel right about the house. Like, some people when you bless a house, it doesn't always work the first time. But we were a couple days later, the partner I was working with went to Lake George with her husband for a little vacation, and then she called me about 5 in the morning. Said she felt the energy of the house try and choke her to death in her sleep. So I was like very concerned with that, knowing that we have to go back to the house and keep trying until this energy stops bothering the people and it's really stops following us. Um, so I hadn't listened to the footage yet of the recordings. So I listened to the footage, and down in the basement area, I always have a recorder going when we're doing a house blessing, just so I know that isn't something still left there. And we're upstairs. You can hear us talking upstairs, and then down in the basement, you hear this guttural, evil kind of laugh on the recorder, and then this piece of metal fall over. I heard that, and I knew, okay, yeah, there's something else there that I don't want to say was demonic. It's just something angry or, you know, in control of the house. Uh, so a couple days before we decided to go back, I had a dream, and it was weird because this woman, she was dressed in, the old Burger King outfit, that polyester, the orange, that terrible brown, and all that. I was like, this is so weird, and I'm dreaming this, and it's very vivid. And she starts yelling at me and grabs me by the throat and tries to choke me. And I wake up like startled, and I could still feel hand marks on my throat and all that. So I know my wife was sleeping. It wasn't her trying to choke me. So, but, but I still felt the hand marks, and I'm like, oh, this place is like crazy. So we finally go back, and we just tried to bless the home in like all these different ways, and it finally cleared. And they were able to sleep, and they were really happy. We finally completed that. Went a whole year without anything happening. Then they decided, the roommates there, the guys, they decided, they weren't getting along anymore and decided they're going to sell the house. So I think the energy was angry they were going to leave. We started getting the knocks again and said, "You want us to come over and help?" And they're like, "No, we're good. We're going to sell the house." So I said, "Okay." So the realtor comes in to take some people around the house, and they go down into the basement, and a disembodied voice is a voice that you could hear it with your ears that isn't there really. It's nobody, it just comes out of nowhere. uh Told the people to get the F out. They went running up the stairs, and you hear the voice that you're going to fall, and the guy falls up the stairs. And needless to say, they didn't buy the house, but the next couple, I guess, that went in, nothing happened, and they decided to buy the house. But we're telling them the whole time, "You want us to help you?" No, 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 no. But it's funny how paranormal works sometimes, because they supposedly sold the house, then they had to do the inspection, and the guy is like assuming everything's going to go through, leaves for Florida, and then come to find out there was over $70,000 that needed to get done to the house in termite damage. So, and it's just crazy. And I'd love to write a book about it. I think it would make a good movie, because there's so much. I'm telling you now, it seems like that was kind of long. There's so much other stuff that was going on in that house. That was just one of the stories of the 8 different spirits that were detected in that house. I mean, it's a story of each of them and how it all comes together. I'm actually very grateful I got to work on that case. And it's gonna, I'll remember that one for a long time. And I worked on a lot of different cases. I've worked at the Enfield Demon House and all that, which there's a book out about that, the history and haunting of the 1771 Enfield House, where the woman that wrote the book interviewed a few of us, because Joe Frankie was the main person on that case. John Zaffis did one of his episodes of Haunted Collector there. So there's a lot of people that have worked cases at this house, and it's still haunted. But I think a lot of the evil energy that was there a few years ago is not there anymore. But it's still, I think, in dormant, and hopefully it doesn't get woken up again. So, but that's another like crazy case too. But there's tons of them. I could go on and on and on about them, but you know, we got other stuff to talk about, and maybe we can make fun of Charles a little bit more and go from there.
I had a guy on here. Cindy Hines, who is a little girl from The Brood, put me in touch with this guy,
Hmm.
Kevin Kane, who deals with possessed dolls or dolls
Yeah.
with some kind of weird energy. And I had him on here. It was a fascinating interview. Have you ever met him?
I think I've heard the name. I
Hmm.
do have several friends like John Zaffis, he's got a museum that he'll troubled items he'll bring. My friends Danny and Lauren, they're called the Radicals. They take haunted items also from people's homes, and so yeah, I've they probably know this guy better than I do, but you know, I, I'm not a haunted doll type of guy. For me, the real Annabelle and Robert the Doll, those are probably the two biggest ones
Well,
for
you
me.
just get Marlon Wayans will take care of Annabelle.
Yeah, exactly.
I've
Yeah.
seen it firsthand.
Yeah. Well, next time I have an issue, I'm going to call Marlon Wayans up and have him come with me. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, yep.
Yeah.
Somebody watched Annabelle and got the wrong
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
Oh, um,
Yeah. You know what? Yeah. People have tried to mess with that doll and things didn't turn out too good for him. Same thing with Robert. Those are the ones that have actual. I think a lot of people see those movies now, and you have to discern because it seems like nowadays, I run these events and everybody's carrying their haunted doll around. I really don't know. I think they want it to be haunted. Um, and sometimes it could happen. You put enough intention into something and you get enough people to believe it, you could create which they call an egregore, which is that energy to put into it. So that's what a lot of hauntings happen sometimes people with trauma and put enough intention, they create their haunting. It's not necessarily the house. Sometimes it's the people. And once the people leave, the haunting's not there anymore. Case in point, I don't think after that energy went into the Amityville house, when those people left that created that haunting, it hasn't really been haunted anymore. So, and there hasn't really been anything there. People have lived there and haven't had any issues, or at least haven't, you know, been formal about the issues. But yeah, it could be you, or it could be the house or the area. So,
I've got figurines of Harley Quinn that look like Margot Robbie. It hasn't come to
nice.
life, but that would have been wild if it did.
That is what they call the fantasy haunting. So,
Ah, that's it.
oh,
I need to get an Emma Stone figure then.
there you go. Yeah.
I was gonna say, the Amityville horror and I think actually the prequel to it, the second one, is actually even better. But
Mhm.
what's interesting is Amityville now, there's so many knockoffs in like Amityville this and so,
Yeah.
like so cheesy knockoffs, like,
Yeah.
and it's almost become a laugh fest. Some of these
Yeah.
possession films, like to me, one of the ultimate possession films to me was The Exorcist. I love the original Exorcist and and films like that. And of course, in the Bible, there's accounts where Jesus drove demons out of people. But when I watch some of these, some of them are very fascinating. But what I want to know is, out of the movies, which would do you find are the most accurate depiction of these events?
None of them.
Oh, not even a
There's,
haunted
even
house.
knowing Ed and Lorraine, that's a lot of their cases and all that, and knowing them and seeing the movies, it's all Hollywooded up. There's probably about 15-20 minutes of actual case file of that particular case, and the rest of it's like Hollywooded up, or they take other cases and kind of intertwine them together when they weren't at the time. But it's weird. It's like I always say it. When I used to work on an ambulance years ago, and like one of our stops would make it on the news, and the news people start talking, I'm like, that didn't happen. That's not what happened. So people like do certain things to make it better for us to hear, or they think it'll make it more exciting. But I just don't, you know, I think the real thing's a lot scarier. So when you could feel that fight or flight in a house that's all dark and you know, that's more of it. That's a lot scarier than a movie could be. Um,
So you don't think a haunted house was based on actual facts?
well, you know, they try it, a lot of it, you
Because
know.
Marlon Wayans had me
Yeah.
convinced.
Oh yeah, he's definitely. But no, you think about it, when you watch a horror movie, it's all set up for you to be scared just with the visuals and the music. You know, a lot of the music is based off of old type of music, the Devil's Triad, which is a type of musical um, move that sounds haunted, you know, like the Jaws theme. That's like the Devil's Triad, or like right there, just doing the piano. That's all it is. And it sounds scary. And it's just, it's a musical movement. And, you know, a lot of, you know, like Ozzy Osbourne and Black Sabbath used the Devil's Triad in a lot of their music. That's what made it, give it that emphasis and all that. And when we hear haunted music in the background, that really brings it up, like you know something's about to happen, because it there's certain ways of music played, it'll bring that fear up as you're watching. So you have the visual, you're hearing it, it's like all your senses are going, and that's what makes a great like horror film and all that. But yeah, you take that all out and just show something, it's just not as scary when you take the music away and all that, when you take those senses away. But when you're in a home and you don't know that there might be something around the corner and all that, yeah, I think reality is if anybody's a big horror fan, come and do the reality. Charles and I take people on
Oh, I've
adventures,
already spent
haunted
time with
locations.
Charles.
Yeah, we take people to, we have one coming up here in February 22nd, I think it is, and it's at a haunted home that used to be a location of a munitions factory, button factory back in the near the brass city of Waterbury and Naugatuck. And we're going to take people to this home and we teach them how to investigate. And some of them are beginners, some of them have been doing it for a while. And everyone we do, it's at a location that really hasn't been overdone. And that way people have the chance to get an experience, so your horror fans get to come and see what it's really about, the reality of it, the no music, the no, I mean the raw guttural feeling of something spooking you and making the hair stand up. It's amazing, and we usually have good results with every place that we've gone to since Charles and I have been together. So,
Charles said the most frightening thing for him was sharing that room with me.
yeah, probably.
He heard things go bump in the night, and I said, "No,
Yeah.
Charles, I just
Well,
had indigestion."
long as you didn't wake up and say, "Hey, are those pillows?" And he said, "No, those aren't pillows."
No, I we had separate beds, but I
Oh,
said,
that's
"No,
good.
Charles, that wasn't anything went bump in the night. I just broke wind. Go back
Oh,
to
okay. Yeah.
sleep. Just don't light a
So,
match."
so no spooning occurred or anything like that.
No, no,
Yeah.
not anything like that. You
Mm.
know, I'm straight, so it wouldn't work anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I joked with him a lot, but
Yeah.
he had a lot of fascinating books on his table, you know, and so
He's a fascinating man. I got to tell you, you know, between music and horror and paranormal and just the all that knowledge, and you know, he runs his own DJ business. This guy's always on the go. He's the hardest working showman in the paranormal. I'll give you that. So it's hard to keep up with him. Hard to get a hold of him sometimes too, because he's like, you call him and he texts you back, I'm in a meeting. They're always trying to get like our next big thing. And
well, I always call him and I leave a message, ask him if his refrigerator is running,
yeah,
and
yeah,
then tell him he
exactly.
needs to run out and catch it.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh boy, he's gonna love this, you know.
I know. So yeah. I always
But
give him a hard time. I always give him a hard time. You know,
yeah.
when we first met, we told each other we hated each other and then laughed in each other's face. That's the brotherly love that we have, and that's something that'll never change. And I know you feel that with him too.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Nope,
you're
I
one of the
was happy
nicest
to.
guys you'll ever meet, and I tell you, one of the hardest working people I've ever met. So
Yeah. No, I had a great time spending time with him there and yeah, I don't know when or if I'll see him again, you know. Um Depends on what my finances, my travels is like, you know.
mhm.
But I mean, I'm open to it. I like I said, I had a great time with him there, and
Yeah,
I know he was in a room there that had Lita Ford in it, and he was like, "Man, I had to move my table because everybody was going in there to see her,
yeah,
and I wasn't getting any business." And when he moved his table to one of the hallways, he was doing much better business, you know.
yeah.
So
Well,
but
Charles is weird when he's upset that Lita Ford is near him.
I'm like, you know what, Charles,
I'd
move
be
a
like,
little
screw
closer,
business. I'm
please.
going to sit next to Lita Ford.
Yeah, like what? Move over there a little closer. I met Lita Ford while I was there.
Yeah, yeah,
Of course, you know. I mean, that's like 80s nostalgia for me, you know?
heck yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Now, you talked a little bit about these adventures you have with him. Uh, Describe it in a little more detail for those that are listening or watching this, and what people can expect when they go on one of these.
So what Charles and I provide is some people they want to they watch the stuff on TV, which of course is farthest from the truth you're going to get. Like I told you, even the stuff on TV isn't as real as it is. A lot of sitting around sometimes, but Charles and I will pick a location that really hasn't that has a haunted history, and we go and we look at the place first because Charles knows that I want to go and do a walkthrough first to make sure it's safe for patrons to come. I don't want I want them to be spooked, but not take something home with them and then have to go to their house and help them. So we want to make sure that they're safe. So we do a walkthrough and talk to the person that's allowing us there, just go over what we're going to do. Like I'll tell you, usually what we do is we want to set our group up with a good intention before they go in, so they're not going in with negative feelings and all that, which could cause problems. So we take them to dinner first. So we'll go to a nearby pizza place, and Charles will try and sell his books, but most of the people that come now have already bought his books like 5 times over.
You leave him with the tab.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I leave him with the tab. So, well, he's the bank. So he handles money better than I do. I'd spend it all before, and we wouldn't have any money to buy pizza. But so we have the people, and we go over, and I'll give them instruction on how equipment works. And usually I attach it with a cool story of that equipment. Like I'll tell them about the SLS camera and how I told you the story earlier and what happened, just so they get an idea. Like this is it, this is how it works, and this is what could happen. So that way, when we go into the place, they have that excitement built up. So we're basically building up positive, excited intention, and then we go into the place. And usually, the person that owns the place we'll just give people the history and all that. You build it up there. And then we'll take them in the different locations, like some of the newer people. If some people have been doing this for a while, we'll let them wander off. They like bring their own equipment and let them, do some research or anything like that. So I'm in like instructive mode. I'll take somebody, say, hey, this is this, and this is what happened in this place. So what do you think you would use to try and, you know, bring something out to communicate with? And so I just kind of testing them. So if they want to get into the field, they're with people like myself that have been doing it for a while, and it helps them learn the proper way to do it. And hopefully they get, an experience where it makes them excited, where they want to keep doing this and coming to our events. So it's a safe way of getting a paranormal experience is probably the best way to put it. And I know Charles will tell you that before he met me, doing these events, he would do the talk and then he'd leave because he was too afraid to go into the haunted locations. The guy that loves horror was afraid, but as he started developing, you take more and more pictures, and he'd capture a lot of stuff like with the camera, and he'd be excited about that because, of course, he had the safety of the camera. But as he met me, and I talked more and more about the paranormal with him, and he gained a better understanding of why things are. So now he comes on all the investigations, and he captures like some great pictures. I mean, shadow figures, things like that that weren't seen with the naked eye. Um, and probably the best one was on the cover of his the Real Hauntings of Connecticut, and we were in he was in this it was like an opera house, and up on the top you can't get up there, it's under construction, there's no way to get up there, but there was a doorway with some light coming in, and he kept taking pictures, and in one of the pictures there was a shadow person there. It's like plain as day, right in the doorway. And he used that on his cover of the book, along with, some skulls from the underground French area with the skulls and all that. And it's an unbelievable capture on the camera. And I could see why he put that on the cover. So, but he does great pictures and all that. And of course, being the showman, it's like everything's very smooth and how we go from one thing to the other. And he's the guy that makes everybody laugh, and then I'm the guy that tries to keep the intention together so people can learn about the paranormal. So it's a yin and a yang, and people love doing it, and especially at a place nobody's usually ever done an investigation at, which makes it pure. I know a lot of places they get investigators over and over and over again, and my theory is when you do something over and over and over again, sometimes you're putting your own energy into it. And you could go back to the place a year later, and the energy you left, you're haunting yourself. So it's kind of a weird thing of how that works. So I like fresh places. And I'm the type of guy, unless it's an event, I won't go to these famous places unless I'm invited and they need help. So I've gotten to the point in my career, like I said, I don't really do home cases anymore. I do consult on them. The only cases I do are probably the worst ones that you write books about, because I know people that are there now don't have the background or the capacity to look at it in a discerning way, like they should. So those are the cases like myself and somebody like John Zaffis or Joe Frankie and all that have done a lot of them. In theory, we're not better than anybody else. It's just experience and seeing it before and trying to deal with it like we've done before. We've made enough mistakes and learned from them. And I'm not saying people that have been doing this for a while are better than anybody else. Somebody could be doing this for a day and just figure something we didn't figure out. So I never want to come off as somebody having an ego because I've been doing this for no, doesn't work that way. It's just experience. There's no experts in this field. So because if there was, paranormal would just become normal if you're an expert. So, but yeah, it's quite a lot to it, but we love having the patrons come and learn. And I always get so excited when something happens, and they get so excited. I love seeing the excitement on people's face to get that bucket list paranormal experience that they've always wanted. So that's what makes it worth it.
What do you think of the paranormal activity movies?
The paranormal, the real ones or the fake ones?
The movies,
Yeah, they film it, the reality of it. That's what some people do. They'll put cameras all over the house when something's going on or those types of things. But yeah, it's based off of reality, what some people do to try and figure out what's going on. But what I do in the paranormal, it's not for me, it's not capturing something on film or anything like that. I learned a long time ago when a family's in need and I go to help them. I'm there to help heal or take the trauma or the fear away from the family. So I help the living. And then sometimes with the dead, when I'm able to communicate with spirits, sometimes they're stuck. They just want somebody to hear their story, and that helps them make the decision to move on. So whether I capture them on film or anything, I always tell people they'll show me all this stuff. Nothing against them. Everybody has their niche in the paranormal. But for me, I look at it and I'm like, I can't really make an opinion on it because I always tell them, what did this do for the client? And what does this do for spirit? If they can't answer that, it's not really me. It's just, I'm different that way. And I always ask, how did it help? How did you help the client? How did you help spirit? If you can't answer that, nothing against you. You could get your footage, put it online, get all your likes on TikTok and all that. That's great. But the house is still haunted then. You haven't come up with a potential solution. So uh, it's like you're a doctor and you go in and somebody needs heart surgery and you say, "Oh, you got a problem with your heart," and they need surgery. You say, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, you just have a problem," and walks away, even though they're the person that could help and save you, right? You they have a heart issue, they need surgery, and you just walk away. It's the same thing in the paranormal. Something's going on. It could be solved with the right intention and hearing the story and help somebody move and help the family be able to sleep. Yeah, capturing a shadow figure, that's great and all, but again, what did that do? Like I said, so that's just me. So that's how I look at it. So I don't expect everybody to be that way. Everybody's got different opinions. We all have buttholes. Everybody's got an opinion. So just like a butthole.
Well,
So
paranormal activities don't happen here because,
yeah,
you know, if I've happened to be walking naked in my apartment,
yeah,
the paranormal gets scared and goes away.
pretty much. Yeah. So that's probably another way. I think that's better than smoking
Yeah,
sage.
I've been told don't
Like
set up
me having a
traps.
terrible naked body walking there, I think that's what keeps the bad spirits away. Yeah, that's another way of clearing a house, so I guess.
Yeah, like they said, don't film any of that. I was gonna say, the conventions that you've done, and I don't want this to sound off topic, but it is part you've done conventions.
Oh yeah.
What are some of the most interesting celebrities that you've met?
Oh, there's been tons of them just in the paranormal, but a lot of, like Tara Buckman was just interesting meeting her, knowing I know she was there for the horror side of it, but just the Cannonball Run was one of my favorite movies growing up, and knowing that she was one of the two women that were in the Ferrari and
I've
all that.
interviewed both of those women.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
then recently we had the Salem Horror Fest this year, and we were very lucky because this past year was the 50th anniversary of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and we had 5 people from the original movie at our event.
I've interviewed
And
a number of them.
yeah, yeah. I know you're in the horror and all that. You've probably met a lot of them, and I think maybe a lot of our attachment to them is because of you through Charles. Who knows? But yeah, that's always very interesting. And just, there's a lot of people in the paranormal I love having at the events because they have something to say. Um, it isn't the me, me, me. It's about what they could teach people and make the paranormal exciting for other people. But yeah, I've had all kinds of people. I've had people like Father Bob, who's been on a lot of shows, who's actually done exorcisms and things like that. Um, Tons of them. I mean, I'm always in awe of other people in the paranormal that put the work in and do it for the right reasons. And I always love to have them at our events because they show people that, hey, it isn't all about yelling at a spirit and then when they yell back at you, run screaming out of the house and the likes and clicks and all that. There's a lot more to it. And I'm glad that people are able to come to our events and be able to see an array of different points of view. So I think that's important. So, yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite convention that you've done?
Well, Charles and I run a bunch of them, so I enjoy all of them.
Hmm.
But I think personally, outside the convention, there's a group of friends of mine. They're always constants at our events because they're always just so great. I love these people. They're part of my inner circle. So when we do the Salem Horror Paranormal Festival, because it's a little bit of drive from Connecticut, so there's usually 7 to 8 of us. We all stay in an Airbnb or more of a um, ones that don't stay along with another person or whatever. But the group of us go in, like we'll rent a home out and just stay there, hang out, talk about weird stuff all night, have some liquid spirits, whatever food's nearby, and we just have a good time and just hang out all weekend, do the event, then hang out, and I love that. It it helps the soul, especially at the end of the year. It's like the last big event of the year for us. And after all the hard work we've done and be able to get together and kind of unwind and do an event, yeah, the energy there is fantastic. And I really appreciate that. And I appreciate all those guys that hang out in the Airbnb, all of us together. So, that's like beyond paranormal. That's love and friendship. And it's hard in this business sometimes to have that. So.
So, do you have any events coming up that you would like to promote on here?
Oh yeah. So yeah, coming up in February, I think it's the 22nd. I think we might have maybe one or two spots open. That is the one in Naugatuck where we're going to take people on an investigation. It's all on, Thomas Patrick Gormley on Facebook, and of course Charles Rosenay or Nat Rock Khan, his other one. So you can find us on there and be able to email or send a phone call over to Charles to get information because he takes care of all the reservations and ticket stuff to keep everything accounted and organized. Like I said, I'm not organized like that, so I'm a crazy man. So, um, and we have that. God, we got a lot of stuff coming up this year. I mean, the Connecticut Paracon.
Talk about some of the other events you got coming up, like in summer and fall or stuff.
Oh
Like
yeah.
just yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of the stuff we do is summer all the way through the end of the year is our
Hmm.
busiest time. But, we have a few of the investigations that are going to be coming up between now and July. But those we still have to solidify. So it's not really an announcement yet, but there's some pretty cool things we're working on. But Connecticut Paracon is definitely going to be July 12th and 13th. So that's Connecticut Paracon and True Crime Conference this year. That'll be in the middle of Connecticut in the brass city of Waterbury. We haven't announced the actual location yet, but it's pretty much, I think we're going to be signing with them on the 25th of this month. Um, and then we have usually in July also, we have our summer psychic fair. That'll be at Dudleytown Brewery. So it's named after a famous haunted Connecticut town. So that's going to be, I think, on the 27th of July. We're only doing one day this year. We used to do two. The reason why we're only doing one day this year is because Charles and I will be up in New Hampshire at a conference together and promoting up there for our events, of course, and trying to sell some books. So that's the July, August. Not a date yet, but we'll do our second annual Connecticut Witch Trials Festival. So that'll be coming up. And a lot of events in between. We try and do a winter psychic fair, summer psychic fair. The winter one's not set yet, but we always have it. So it's going to be at a brewery. It's always at a brewery. But Salem Paracon will be in November. We tried October, but it's so busy in Salem. It's so expensive and nowhere to park and all that. We thought we'd get more people, but a lot of people just have the agenda to be in Salem and not go to a festival. So we're going to go back, have it in November again. I think it's the 15th and the 16th. So that one's going to be great too. We're back at the Salem College and all that in the gymnasium. And so there's tons of stuff going on. So sometimes Charles will sign something, then I'll find out when everybody else does. It's just so much going on quickly and all that. It's hard to keep up. But, we always have our major events and everything sprinkled in between. Some smaller events like go on ghost hunts with us or just psychic fairs. And then, but Salem, Connecticut Paracon, and the Connecticut Witch Trials Festival, those are our biggest like events with everything sprinkled in between. There's always something going on, and Charles does a thing at Transylvania Restaurant.
Hmm.
So actually Romanian food and all that, like pretty much every Thursday. He does uh monster trivia. Like
Yeah.
one next he'll do monster bingo. And now he's gonna start doing one where he shows an abstract um horror movie that nobody really sees. And then whoever yells out the funniest thing will get prizes and all that. So yeah, it's quite set up really well. There's just always something going on. And yeah, we appreciate all our people at Transylvania Restaurant, how it sponsors us a lot. And, we also, all of October, we do the Haunted Trolley. So the old trolley museum, people come on and we do an event on the trolley where it might be a murder mystery or something like that. It's just something cool, like haunted for October. And then this past year, they did Who Slayed Santa on the trolley too for a couple days, and we had to figure out who took out Santa and all that, and just actors on the trolley, and you don't know if they're actors or actual people on the trolley enjoying the event. You don't know till the end, so it's set up really well, and people love it, and always good press with that. But yeah, we always got stuff going on, and we want people to come to, our website. We got the Paracon website also. Um, I think we got so many different sites. I forget all the sites that we're on and promoting our events. But if you follow Charles Rosenet or follow myself, Thomas Patrick Gormley, we're always putting stuff up on there that you could click on and look and get to the websites that way. And, once we pull up our Paracon website and decorate it and start getting solidify all the people coming this year and all that. So little by little, we like to build the momentum and make people excited that way. So it always ends up good. And this year, I think it's going to be a good year. So, last
Oh,
year people were like wondering what's going to happen. Like, up in Canada, you don't know that guy was going to leave, and you never know what's going to happen in our politics with our economy and all that. But I think this year is going to be a good year. So,
I wanted to ask you about your true crime podcast and for you
mm,
to get into that a little bit because that's another side of you.
yeah. Yeah, so a few of my friends, it's funny being a shaman. On the episode, a woman I met at Mass Paracon, she had brought something to my attention about H. Holmes, and we talked, and we got along really. It's like she's a long lost sister, so we got along really well right off the bat. She's down in South Carolina, and they have had a podcast, and they've had me on, and they said, let's do an 8-week episode about serial killers. I said, yeah, cool. Supposed to be 8 weeks, and now it's into every Monday at 8 o'clock. It's on the All Access Network TV, but you pick it up on Facebook when it's live, and then it goes on the YouTube. But the name of it's called Serial Killers, Supernatural, and Murderers. So we talk about not only serial killers, but famous murders like the Casey Anthony case, where her daughter went missing, and they couldn't figure out if she killed her or if the grandparents or that whole case. And with my background in criminal behavior, um, a lot of the times on these podcasts, I'll take apart how the person grew up, the trauma they went through, and why they might be doing what they're doing. And we talk about the history and how what happened. But our main direction is to teach people about how these serial killers do what they do and how it happens and how to keep safe, because in your lifetime, you'll come into contact with 33 serial killers in your lifetime and either know it directly or indirectly. It's the old, oh, I neighbor lived next door to me all these years, and you find out they're a serial killer. You don't know with people. So there's signs to look for, and we teach people on our episodes. So there's the history of it, the gore of it, the psychology of it, and just the tidbit about, hey, if you were to run into this guy, this is what you might recognize. This is, don't get into a car just because guy has a broken leg and help him like Ted Bundy used to do. So you got to be cautious. So if we could help somebody not come into contact like that directly and become a victim, then we're doing a good job with our show. One of the people on our show was a victim. She was kidnapped and was gone from her home for 2 weeks before they found her. And she's one of the main people on the show. So there's four of us that talk on the show. We're coming from my background, from somebody that was actually abducted, and the other gentleman on there actually did his college thesis on serial killers. So there's a lot of background, and I dealt with it, of course, college, my training, but with inmates, psychiatric inmates, and all that. So your Hannibal Lecters of the world. So we're bringing all that into the mix and giving our opinions, our educated opinions, and just the history of it and what we think. And it's caught on pretty good because they wanted to keep doing it because people are really liking it and all that. And I'm glad because maybe we could help somebody not get into the situation and become a victim. So that's the important part. So it's fun. So
How does the woman move on after being kidnapped for 2 weeks?
that's something we haven't really I haven't really brought up with her, but yes, we all go through traumas in our life, major traumas like that. And I think because she was a victim, I think her overcoming the trauma is more of helping people not become a victim, just telling them what she did and how she got out of the situation, after the 2 weeks. You could let it define you, or you could take a positive out of it and help somebody else not get in that situation like she does.
Do you mind
So
if I ask how she got out of it?
I, I think it was finally, I think they found her or something like that, or she left clues for people to be able to find her. I don't know exactly. It's one of those things we've known each other, but it's like I wanna ask her directly, but sometimes, okay, what am I bringing up?
Hmm.
Usually when we're talking, we have a few minutes before we go on the episode. And when I'm on with her, it's like I don't want to directly ask her because we're on live. Uh, but I think you're right. It's might be a time that I just talk to her on the phone and just see, and then how,
I'm just fascinated,
yeah,
that she would come on there. Now
yeah,
there have been people that have talked about traumatic issues like
yeah.
this, and but you mentioned that she's a regular on there, and she was gone for
Well,
2 weeks.
she's the main person on the show. Like
Yeah, I find
she,
that fascinating that that she's able to delve into this and
yeah,
how she get out of that, because that is some tools people
yeah. Well,
need, you know.
we're gonna do a whole episode. We're planning on doing a whole episode how what she did and how to help other people if they're in the situation, how to do things too. Just even as law enforcement, if somebody were to take us captive, there's a thing when you stop a car and you approach a car, police officers will always touch the back of the car on the car light where the plastic is. They're leaving their
Mhm.
fingerprint. So they're leaving their own evidence behind if something does happen to them in the that stop. So there's a lot of different things that happen. Even you're a law enforcement officer, you're armed, but there's still the potential that something to happen to you. You get shot, the car takes off, and then they find the car and then they find the officer's fingerprint on it. They're able to convict. So that way somebody doesn't get away with killing a police officer. So there's a lot of different ways of those types of things. But you know, we're going to do a whole episode where we teach people what to look out for, and if you are captured, things to do to get away. So it's going to be a whole thing about that. So we have that plan to come up. So it's funny that you asked that question. I think that's not why she didn't really talk about it yet, because I think we're saving that for a
Hmm.
very major episode that I know once we announce it and put it out there, I think it's going to be one that everybody's going to have to watch. You're talking about somebody that was abducted, just myself dealing with psychiatric inmates and those types of people that do those things to others. Somebody with college degree that has picked that stuff apart. Our producer and all that is very well versed too. So I'm looking forward to that episode, but we're building up to it. It's almost like we're building an audience. And I think once we get that peak audience, then I want to make sure we hit them with that episode. Because I think it's very important that the more people that watch it, the more people we're going to be able to help in that situation.
Here's a question. I don't know if you want to share it on here, but I'll ask it. What's the most heinous case you've ever dealt with in law enforcement?
Oh my Lord. See, I worked in the prison system.
Hmm.
So it's almost like a city within a city. So when you're watching all the inmates, this is their daily life, just like out in the streets, a daily life is going. So you're in a smaller like thing where you have to basically adult babysit and
Hmm.
keep an eye, make sure they stick by the rules and the laws within the prison. But I had, I think it's more the gore of it. People stab each other, things like that. But I think the worst one was the guy put a bunch of locks. They're the locks for the in a sock. He was mad at this other guy because he had to be in confinement for a couple months. He kind of ratted him out, and once he got out, he immediately went up to the guy that he thinks got him in confinement, and the guy knew he was coming, so he had all these locks in his sock. Guy rushes into the room, and this is the story we get afterwards. But when we went to the location of where this happened afterwards, the guy come running in, and the guy with the locks hit him right in the face, knocked his eyeball out. So when we got up there, his blood and eyeballs hanging out, and I was like, I worked as a paramedic, and I've seen some pretty crazy things, but it was just strange for me. It was like a horror movie with somebody's eyeball like hanging out and seeing what you see, and it pretty messed up. So yeah, I think that's probably the grossest thing I've seen. But I've seen people putting little flags on body parts after being hit by a train in Hartford when I worked as a medic, or somebody crashing on a motorcycle into a telephone pole, and but I don't know what it was, why that eyeball hanging out affected me more than seeing some of that stuff. I think it's the rage of it, that knowing that person had his rage against the other person, the other stuff, whether it be a suicide or accident, but just seeing the people there and it going on and that rage between one person to the other, that energy, I think me, how I pick up energy. And I think that energy of it is why it affected me a little bit more than what other things I've saw. So.
Did they both go into solitary confinement after that?
Well, the other guy lost his eye, so they had to take him on a little hospital visit. But the other guy, yeah, into confinement and all that. And if you commit a crime like that in prison, even though you're already in prison, you could get more time. So they take you back to court. So whatever, press charges. It's all the same.
You
Prison's
know,
just like
kind
a
of, I was gonna say it kind of reminds me of a wrestling match I saw. I think it was in Japan between
yeah,
Stan Hansen and Vader. And uh Stan Hansen, I don't know how it happened, but Stan Hansen had hit Vader so hard as
yeah,
Vader's eye popped out, and you see Vader pop back in. I'm
yeah,
like, you know,
yeah,
but I mean, Vader's gone now, but I've heard
yeah,
them both talk about it and shoot interviews. I don't think they hold it against each other, but
yeah,
it happens. They were working stiff, but yeah,
yeah. So
yeah.
it gets pretty crazy out there. It's just how one human could do something to another human, and that energy that creates it imprints and all that. So, and I think a lot of those situations, especially in a prison and a hospital, psychiatric place and all that, that's why a lot of these places are haunted afterwards, because that imprinted energy of your emotions, what you go through, and you imprint it there. And that's why they write, these horror movies about stuff like that too. So it's all intertwined: horror movies, paranormal, true crime, and just the energy that's put into all of it. And, whether the gore and what we get out of it and how it affects us as humans as we watch it. Like I talked about earlier, the devil's triad and how the music makes you feel. It's just, the reality of it, that stuff's not going on out there in one way or another. Uh, and that's where people get the ideas to write stuff like the horror movies and things like that, and the music. And it's funny how our world is, but if you really want to go down the rabbit hole, anything you do always leads to something else. Our whole world is all intertwined. It leads to something. something that we love leads back to what somebody else loves and all that. That's our connection as humans. We're all connected on these little silver lines of what we like and how they're interconnected. Like I said, true crime. Some people only like true crime, but they don't realize it's attached to paranormal, And then when you watch, paranormal, it's scary. It's like, oh, I love horror movies. And it's like, I love music because that's how it makes me feel. The horror movie makes me feel weird because of the music. They follow the music. So you got these rabbit holes all over the place, and that's why we're humans, and that's why a lot of us get along, and and because we see those silver lines and how we're connected, and that's the mystery of the universe right there. So we're all connected in some way or another. The old Kevin Bacon, everybody's connected at 6 degrees of separation or whatever. But yeah, that's pretty much it in a nutshell, with that type of thing.
I find it really strange that people are fascinated with and even if it's serial killers, but even
Mhm.
even pop culture. The
Yeah,
Joker's more celebrated right now than Batman,
yeah,
kind of like that. It's weird how backwards society is on that.
yeah,
And I thought the Joker movie was great the way they made it more like Taxi Driver than a Batman movie. I thought it was
yeah,
fantastic. But I notice there's a lot in pop culture now. Maleficent comes out and they give the backstory, and suddenly we're supposed to view her differently, and then Cruella comes out, and of course I have a massive crush on Emma Stone, so I'm gonna go to that. But
nice. Yeah,
then you got most recently Wicked come out, and you get the backstory about the Wicked Witch,
yeah.
and I liked Wicked, but I had a few issues with how we're supposed. Well, we're supposed to look back on the Good Witch of the East on a negative,
Yeah,
and I'm kind of like, I never saw the Good Witch of the East as a negative, or Good Witch, yeah, no, Good Witch of the North, excuse me. And I don't know if you saw Wicked, but hell, I liked the movie, but I had an issue with how it opened because it opened apparently at the celebration, the end of Wizard of Oz. They're celebrating the witch was um, uh, melted away.
yeah,
But here's the thing: they have Ariana Grande playing the Good Witch, and I'm like, that's quite different than having Billy Burke play the Good Witch at the end of the Wizard of Oz.
yeah,
The age thing is just not there, and I'm
yeah,
and I'm seeing something because we're supposed to believe this is at the end of the Wizard of Oz and this tale's being told, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not. The personalities between Grande and Billy Burke are vastly different, and
yeah,
as much award praise is being given to this movie, in a way that took me out of it a little bit,
yeah,
because I always saw Billy Burke's portrayal of the Good Witch as a positive,
yeah.
you know. But again, you
Well,
see a
show yeah, it
uh,
shows our complex way of thinking nowadays. Back in the day, it was coming out. You always have everything was the good versus evil, but now it's complicated. Where somebody you think is good is actually evil. They hide it. It's that narcissism that you're able to have that communal narcissism where you could show people, oh, I'm great, but behind the scenes you're evil. So that I think making those relationships more complicated, we're becoming more complex with potential movie themes, and especially when it comes to true crime, the complexity of you know usually nowadays you could know exactly who the killer is because they all shape it the same way. But now, if you make their characters and their personalities more complex, where you think you know, but you don't, you're changing up the narrative. And that's what makes maybe some of the newer stuff a little more exciting. We can't expect the same old anymore. And I think sometimes that disappoints people because they want the same old. They're stuck in it. But I think making things more complex and looking at it that way, it just makes it a little more exciting. So for me, it does.
I'm a big believer in good over evil, and
Hmm.
I find it funny because I like a lot of horror movies, but
Yeah,
I find it very funny that some of the slasher film killers right now are being looked at as anti-heroes, and people are like celebrating them. And I'm
Yeah.
like, that is not how these were supposed to be intended.
Hmm.
I'm going to tell you a little story. I remember I saw the Star Wars trilogy at the
Yeah.
drive-in theater when I was young. I was
Yes.
born in 1972, so I grew up
Yeah.
with those.
Yeah.
But I remember Return of the Jedi had an effect on me because it was the first time I recall seeing good really have an effect on somebody because Darth Vader was the most evil one in the galaxy.
Yeah.
And I remember being in the back seat at the drive-in there watching Return of the Jedi when Darth Vader grabs the Emperor and hurls him down that
Yeah.
shaft. I was just cheering. I was like, wow, good is so powerful. It affected Darth Vader of all, you know? And I almost find now, like I hear people say, I hated the end of The Mist. I'm gonna say
Yeah.
that. People say it's a great end. No, it's a shit ending, you know.
Yeah.
I'm using that as an example. It was a shit ending. But I always find it funny. You got these horror movies, and it's like, I like to see victims that you can identify with and you can
Hmm.
kind of like, yeah, I can get behind. And there's a lot of horror movies that come out, and you can look at the later and a lot of the franchises, like there's a big difference between Halloween and Halloween Resurrection in terms
Yeah.
of how it comes across. Um,
Except for Jamie Lee Curtis. She's the constant. So she's
yeah,
even more
but
constant than
but the
some of
th
the Michael Myers guys have changed over the years of who played them.
well,
So yeah.
here's the thing in Halloween. You got Michael Myers was a creepy individual,
Yeah.
the shape as they called him. But here's the thing, I don't think you're sitting there waiting for the people to die. Number one, you're right behind Dr. Loomis. That you get the chance to know Lori and her friends,
Yeah.
you know? And but then you get to like Halloween Resurrection. It's like,
Yeah.
you get Busta Rhymes going trick or treat, motherfucker, and it's
Yeah.
like, it's like I'm being
Well,
taken out of
it becomes a parody, something that was a masterpiece. They because once you capture lightning in a bottle and all that, you can't repeat it. I
like, I
don't care how
mean,
much you try.
yeah,
So in my book, yeah,
there's
that
a big
it's
difference
impossible.
between A Nightmare on Elm Street and Freddy's Dead. Big,
Yeah.
big difference. You're
Yeah.
not afraid of Freddy anymore, and you're actually kind of looking forward to seeing him kill.
Yeah.
Friday the 13th. I still like Jason Lives. I can still get
Yeah.
behind the characters of part six.
Yeah.
After that, it's like once you get to Jason Takes Manhattan, and it's like it's especially Jason X, which was a train wreck. It's like you don't care.
Yeah.
And I would like it so that you care.
Yeah.
You look at something like Don't Breathe, you know. I mean, that was interesting because you had a killer who could defend himself, but he was also blind, so he had an ailment.
Yeah.
These people, these thieves are going to break in and steal.
Yeah.
What I love the fact about that movie is that these thieves, number one, they're in the wrong. They're in the wrong. They're getting what they deserve, but you're not looking at it that way. You're kind of like, my goodness, you can kind of like, you want them to get the hell out of there, because even though this guy's blind, shit, know, he's dangerous.
Yeah.
But then they do the sequel to Don't Breathe and they make him like a hero. And I'm like, considering what he was doing in the first film, which was
Yeah.
really effective, I was like, why are they going this path? It's like, stop celebrating this. We
Yeah.
need to, and it's like I said about Joker. I love the Joker movie. I love the commentary of it. But when are we going to start making Batman interesting again?
Mhm.
Or when are we going to it's like they're making all the villains interesting. And I've heard pro wrestlers say this. They love playing the heels, the
Yeah.
villains. I get that. Villains, you need a villain, a good villain to make a good hero. But I'm finding a lot lately they're lacking in making their heroes
Yeah.
colorful. And I wish they would get back to that and get back to where horror movies you can like, yeah, I can get behind this, and
Well, yeah, that's where they're the thing is I'll tell you the psychology of it. A lot of these horror movies, and the reason why a lot of people don't get into they get into more of the monster or the horror of the killer, because we we don't have that frame of mind. We're not the killers. We're the people getting killed, you know? And that's why we're like, I could put myself in that movie because I could potentially be a victim or whatever, and that's why we don't get along with those characters. The reason why we like the monster more is because it fascinates us. What happened to that person to become that way? That's the fascination that we have with the anti-hero, the monsters. Like, what happened to you to make your mind flip to do these things? Like the Joker, they show how his mind flipped in a way. But even with serial killers and all that, there are real life monsters and horrors and all, so they make movies about them. That's why somebody like Ed Gein, they used as, you know, in Psycho. Psycho was inspired by that. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Buffalo Bill, and Silence
Silence
of
of the
the Lambs.
Lambs. Yeah, yeah.
Our horror people are off these guys because their minds were so flipped, and we're fascinated by that because us as humans, we can't understand that. Like the paranormal, we can't understand it. And I think that's why us as humans are fascinated, and the rest of the characters are just us. And I don't think that's
Well,
like
one
what
of
we're
the great things
fascinated. We
about silent,
potentially could be a hero.
yeah.
We have more potential to be a hero than to be a villain,
Mhm.
when it comes to movies, and that's why we're fascinated by it.
One thing about Silence of the Lambs, though, I thought Jodie Foster played a compelling
Oh yeah,
heroine, though, and you kind of need that to
yeah.
to balance it out. And
But
I
every
like it
character in
when.
that movie was important, and
Mhm.
there's a lot that says to it, and it's based off of a lot of, like I said, the Buffalo Bill was you know Ed Gein, but a lot of people don't know is Hannibal Lecter helping the FBI is based off of a true story. Did you know that?
I didn't know that. No.
So there was BSU agents looking for the Green River Killer, Gary Ridgway, who we found out later on, and they were trying to profile it, and they kept getting letters from a famous serial killer from prison, and they finally decided to go see him, and he says, I can help you guys on this case and help you profile. And they did it, and a lot of this similar stuff was going on. Guess who that person was? Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy actually helped the FBI profile Gary Ridgway. Unfortunately, Bundy was put to death in the electric chair just like, and then a few years after they finally captured Gary Ridgway. But that was like the inspiration for that in the movie. So there's a lot of writers take from real life to turn it into that fascination we have with serial killers like the Ed Geins and the Ted Bundys and the Gary Ridgways. This Monday on serial killers, supernatural murders, we're going to be picking apart Gary Ridgway and talking about him. So if your viewers want to see that, and it's going to be quite
You
fascinating. So,
you got to send me a link to your
oh, I will. Yeah,
both of them because even the true crime one I'm very fascinated with.
yeah.
I'm just thinking too. You mentioned true crime. Um, what about the Zodiac killer?
There's a lot of talk about that. I've seen a lot of stuff on that, and
Because that has fascinated a lot of people
yeah,
because it's not been solved, has it?
no, and I think that's going to end up like the old Jack the Ripper, and people have who they think did it and all that. There's going to be all these different people and all that, but I'm pretty sure that whoever the Zodiac was has passed away since. I don't think he's still around, so going to be difficult to prove. But there was a documentary that I saw that this family's stepfather they grew up with. They think he was the Zodiac because they used to vacation in a lot of these places where a lot of the murders happened, and he would go away for a little while and come back like, "Hey, we got to get in the car and go." And that was the assumption that he might have been, the Zodiac, and yeah, they potentially even the Unabomber was accused of being the Zodiac at one time because where he was going to college at the time was in the area. So you have a lot of different suspects. But the thing is great about it is, you want them to capture so people can have closure. But again, it's the fascination of the monster. It's the fascination of let's try and figure it out. So people love trying to figure stuff out and see the clues and all that. And that's what makes true crime and a lot of these people that try and help police solve these cold cases and get to see all this different footage and all that. But yeah, so it's quite a niche of our society and seeing those types of things and all that. And yeah, I enjoy that side of it. I enjoy the paranormal side to it, is
Hmm.
because I'll probably go my whole lifetime and nobody will ever be able to 100% say that ghosts are real. It's fascinating. It's the reason why it's called paranormal, because once it's proven 100% and everybody agrees to it, then it's normal. So, but that's the chase with that too. The criminal mind, I love it. You can't figure it out. You'll never be able to figure it out. You could get the pattern, but you'll never get the fingerprint. Same thing with the paranormal. You could capture all the evidence, feel like you did something, have theories, but nobody's ever going to be 100% right or wrong about it. So I think it's the chase. It's the trying to learn something every day because you can with that, because you can never be 100% right, but you have your theories that make you feel good or something that keeps you up at night and you solve it in your mind how you feel and you're able to go to sleep. So it is. It's a fascinating way of life and all that. And everything, like I said, is intertwined when you're fascinated by these monsters and these horror movies because sometimes they're based off of like Silence of the Lambs based off of real people. They just made a story out of being inspired by actual things that happen, which a lot of people don't know, and that makes it even more exciting that hey, this potentially happened. So
Well, it was fascinating having you come on here today, and I just want to acknowledge Charles Rosenay for connecting us, any more funny stories about him, we might as well give him a little more attention.
he didn't need a funny story, he's just funny looking, so. Just look at the guy and you'll laugh. Yeah, I'm kidding.
Yep.
I
Oh, we
Charles is
love
my
Charles.
brother. He's my brother from another mother, and we care very much about each other and just want to succeed and let people like yourself, be able to talk to you guys and
Yeah.
share our relationship and all the things that we love, and maybe it excites you, excites the people watching your show, and that's what it's all about. So.
Absolutely, absolutely. You want to plug your web page and stuff like that, social media on here before we close off?
Yeah, yeah, Facebook is probably the big one. Thomas Patrick Gormley. On Instagram, I'm the Archangel of the Paranormal. Same thing on TikTok, but I don't know if TikTok's going to be around much longer. Supposedly they say, who knows? But Threads, Archangel of the Paranormal. Charles, of course, Charles Rosenay or Nat Rock Khan, and also Paracon.
Hmm.
So Connecticut Paracon. Uh, a lot of our websites are like ConnecticutParacon.org, Salem Paracon, Salem Paracon, and HorrorFest.org. There's a lot of them. There's a ton of them. I could be talking for another hour, all the different things, but I think simply if you follow me on Thomas Patrick Gormley on Facebook, Charles Rosenet on Facebook, you'll be able to pick up all this stuff. We're always sharing the links on there. Make it easier, put it all in like one place. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
And I guess the last question is, what kind of advice, do you have for our inspired fellow Marlon Wayans in case he's haunted in his house again, or gets fixated on the Annabelle doll? Like, you got any advice for that guy? We're all worried
Well,
about him.
well, Marlon Wayans, if he's gonna go at it with the haunted doll, make sure he puts some holy water on that thing hanging there, and I think he'll be okay.
Oh, those movies got poor reviews, but I was like, you know
Uh,
what? It's Marlon Wayans, like,
I love stuff like that when they make fun of other things and all that, and just to see.
Well, he was
The
great at
contrast
Requiem
with
for a
it's
Dream,
hilarious.
you know.
I love humor.
Yeah,
Yep.
he was great in Requiem for a Dream, but I
Yeah.
love seeing him be funny, you know. But I just remember watching a haunted house for the first time, and
Yeah.
I knew it was coming. You get the camera on them, you know, and the
Yeah.
timer underneath, and you know full well you got a fart joke happening.
Yeah.
Or
Fart jokes are the best. I'm 53 years old and I still love a good fart joke. I even have a friend of mine, her and I send each other funny like fart memes and stuff. And
hmm
if you saw two of us out in the field and all that, you're like, these guys like fart jokes. So because we're like we get out there, we're seriously doing our craft and but we're sitting there sending each other fart jokes. And it's just that's what it is, you got to have a sense of humor when you do like true crime and paranormal and horror and all that. You got to have the sense of humor to it too. That's why those types of movies come out, it's just to put the other contrast side of, oh my God, this is scary to, oh my God, it's funny. You put
or
that
they
spin
just
on it.
want to do weird shit with Marlon
Yeah, with
Wayans.
dolls. Yeah. That's the other side of our world too. So
Yeah. Anyway, before I let you go, would you mind doing a plug for my show?
sure.
Just state your name and you're the Archangel, sorry, Angel of the
Talking about
Paranormal.
dolls again. So
Well, yeah, that Marlon Wayans thing
yeah.
really affected me. Uh, yeah,
So what do you want me to say?
state your name, say you're the Archangel of the Paranormal, and so you're listening to Greg Gilbert on Python's Paradise.
Okay, Python's Paradise. Let me write this down. Python's Paradise, right?
Yeah.
All right.
See, Marlon Wayans would have remembered that right off.
No, yeah. Probably why is with the doll. So, all right, let's see. Python's Paradise. Here, hold on.
hmm
Let me just write that. Okay. Here we go. Five, four, three, two. Thomas Patrick Gormley, the Archangel of the Paranormal and the Shaman of the Shaman and the Showman LLC. You are listening to Greg Gilbert's podcast, Python's Paradise. Make sure you watch. Bring your charcuterie board and your liquid spirits to watch. Have a good one.
And bring Charles Rosenay and invite Marlon Wayans
There you go.
because he'll take care of the dolls.
Yes. Yeah, if you have a haunted doll, bring it to Marlon Wayne's. So now I'm gonna have to have Marlon Wayne's at a horror convention now. So just because of
Oh
these
my
things.
goodness. I just find it funny, you know.
Yeah,
He said watched Annabelle and that's what he got out of it.
yeah, yeah.
Fucking that doll. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Only he would do that.
Yes. That is quite a twist. So it's quite a twist. So
Yeah. Or in Scary Movie too, where Sean Wayans
yeah. Yeah.
turns the table on the poltergeist
Yeah.
doll.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Poor doll had Poor doll tried to get out with under the bed. His chick was wrapped around the
So
clown's
basically what you're saying is all the Wayne brothers could take care of any haunted doll in
I
any
think
way
they
you need
can.
to. All right, so that'll be a new movie. The Wayne brothers do exorcisms on haunted possessed dolls. So yeah, I have to come up with a theme for
And
that. Have all the
unfortunately, they're
brothers
not
in
going to
it.
use holy water. I know, like, get
Yeah,
into what they're going to use.
yeah, I know, huh? Hol-
Oh,
hol- Holy, put the holy water on it before you
yeah,
have
that's
sex.
where the Wayans brothers start lubing up.
Yeah, probably have one of those like what the haunted blow up doll or something, So
Yeah, I could see that.
yeah, haunted blow up doll. They always look scared.
Yeah, yep. They'll probably be more scared after they get done with it.
I know. Oh my God, the Wayne brothers are coming. So yeah, maybe that's the way to keep haunted dolls at bay. Once they see just show them a picture of Damon or Marlon Wayans, and you'll be all set. So Sean Wayans.
There you go. Takes care of the problem.
the way to take rid of, yeah, it's the way to get rid of the haunted dolls. Yeah.
Throw
So
Anna Faris in there for good measure, you
there you go.
know.
Oh my God, it's hilarious.
Well, you have yourself a wonderful day, and
Two.
tell Charles I said hello. And we weren't talking at all about him on here. Not
No,
a
yeah, we didn't
thing.
say one word.
Not
Yep,
one
not
word.
one word about him. So
Not one word.
awesome.
I never talked about you knocking on his door and then turning the corner. And
Yeah. That's hilarious. So
oh, this was fascinating today. Thank you so much,
yes,
Thomas.
anytime.
You have a wonderful day.
Maybe
And
next time, Charles, both of us will come on with you. So
you know what? That would be great. And
yeah,
then we can both make fun of them.
yeah, we'll just both we'll gang up on him.
Sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, it's a good idea. So
There you
yeah,
go.
we'll just have a roast of Charles, and we'll make a whole show of it.
We could exercise Charles.
Yes, yeah. So that would be good.
There you go.
Think he
There
needs
you
it
go.
sometimes. Yeah.
Well, you have a great day. It was
All right, you too, my
fascinating.
friend. So
All right.
great
Take
talking to
care.
you.
Yep.
All right. Have a good
All
one.
right. You
Bye bye.
too. Bye bye.